Good afternoon, Friday, April 3rd, Good Friday, 2:54 p.m. Just got out of the shower, had a workout, lunch. Got some family coming, out of town. Got a lot of stuff going on. I've got one of my daughters is was going to go on college tour. She wanted me to go with her. Now she's in Florida on spring break with her friend Lily. So we'll see how that's going. But anyway, I wanted to check in. Um, with a couple items. One, it was a strong jobs report today. We'll lead off the top with that. The expectations were for 59,000. It came in at 178,000. So it was a strong report. Under the surface, strongest hiring since 2023. The manufacturing sector, the best since May of 2024. So manufacturing has been strong. We've talked about that with the Dodge, leading index of construction activity, and you're seeing that. There were some negative revisions to February's job report. It was negative 92,000 originally. It was revised to negative 133, but January's was revised up from 126,000 to 160,000. So kind of those revisions were, pretty much net canceled each other out. Um, the market, sold off just a little bit. I mean, there was only futures trading for a very short time today, but I think it removed it makes the case for a Fed rate cut, at least in the market's eyes, a little weaker because the economy's stronger, but that's a good thing. And I still think that Walsh is going to come in and cut rates here when he comes in. I think they'll take the Fed funds. He's hinted at 3.5 down to 2. I think that'll bring the 10-year down 2. So, but we'll talk about that, um, you know, uh, another time or as when I do another one of these updates. Um, I also wanted to point out the second thing I wanted to touch on was that the breadth of the market is quietly a lot stronger than feared right now. In particular and specifically, the iShares Russell 2000 Value Index, which I've been comparing to the Invesco QQQ Trust, the Russell 2000 Value is up 6.4% year to date right now. The Russell 2000 itself is up 2.3%. The equal weight S&P, which RSP is the ticker for that, is up 1.2%. So those are all positive, led by small cap value. The S&P, was up last week pretty decently, but it's down 3.6% year to date. That's SPY as a ticker. And the Invesco QQQ Trust is down 4.7% year to date, led down by the Mag 7. Microsoft, in particular, has had a rough go of it year to date. There's definitely a wide dispersion of stocks, of performance, and you see that. I mean, the typical S&P 500 company moves a lot more than investors think, and then once you go down below that level of market capitalization, the dispersion gets even wider. But we're seeing that in a positive way this year right now. It's not very discussed because the macroeconomic stuff is overriding everything, So I just wanted to point out the breadth in the market has been stronger than anticipated, stronger than feared. And even, the week prior, which saw, a pretty brutal sell off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the New York advanced decline line, actually strengthened for the week. So that was pretty interesting. Um, I'm going to conclude. This is going to be a short update. I want to give a little story time, but you'll see my shirt. This is Shunkgully Oyster Bar. It says 30A. I have traveled to Florida a lot in my career, job wise. Um, I used to go down to Naples a lot, particularly when I worked for Oxford. A lot of partners would summer down there. I mean, out winter down there. So go, November, December, January, February. I've done a lot of work in Miami and Palm Beach on the hedge fund side. And in 2020, during the pandemic, even, our counties up here, which are pretty conservative counties, Hamilton County, Indiana, they were shutting down, and I said to my family, I said, hey, let's go rent a house in Florida. If we're going to be locked in somewhere, let's go on the beach. So we found Santa Rosa Beach. We rented a house down there during the pandemic, and it's my favorite part of Florida. We've got a place, had places down there. Shunkgully is one of my favorite restaurants. You'll see people advocating like the 30A lifestyle. Um, so, if you get a chance, really check it out. And people have invested in St. Joe, which owns the real estate down there. Actually, this is part of my story time. When I was in 2008, I worked. One of my colleagues was Jim Mahoney. Jim was a big guy, and not that I'm small, but Jim was big, gentle giant though. We were down, and we went to the Four Seasons to work with Bruce Berkowitz, who was living there because he was building how he built a couple houses in I think Coconut Grove in Miami, and so we had it was funny because we had and I don't drink too much, but we had a wine. He was bringing out expensive bottles of wine, and we had all these appetizers at the Four Seasons, and I thought that was our evening. And they said, no, we're going to go after this. We're going to Joe Stone Crab. And I told Jim, I was like, I'm stuffed. I don't think I can make it. And so we get to Joe Stone Crab, and they sit us down, and they break out more expensive bottles of wine and put these stone crabs there. And I was just, I was, I had to take a walk and go outside. And I actually walked around. I think I threw up in the Miami River because I was just so full of food and wine. And I came back in, and I was rejuvenated. Jim said, "What happened to you?" I didn't tell him what happened, but I was rejuvenated. We had a dinner. This is one of the nights that, I partook in food and the most in my life, and I always remember that. And we were staying on Miami Beach, Jim and I, and we took a taxi at that time back, and we were so tired at the end of the night that I leaned over and Jim leaned over on me, and we fell asleep together. And we were just the driver had to wake us up, and but there I also this is part of my story time. And the next morning when I woke up, we were in the midst of a market panic. This was like November of '08. I bought General Growth Properties, and that was one of my best investments ever. So I'll pontificate on that more next time. I'm a lot older now. 2008 is almost not quite, but it's almost 20 years in the rearview mirror. But I've took a winding road through Florida, through the Miami and Palm Beach area. We go down, and we've stayed in Orlando a lot for vacations. I've got a friend, real close friend, that's in Melbourne. There was in Naples a lot, but then we ended up in Santa Rosa Beach, which is one of my favorite places in the world. So I haven't got down there. We've been busy, but we may do that as the summer rolls along. Although we're thinking about taking another trip this year. But anyway, that's my story time. And the takeaway from that is, one, get out, live, and enjoy life. Explore, and two, even in times of turmoil, and we've seen it in our group, particularly with natural gas equities and Antero and Peabody and Oxy in 2020. Sometimes you buy and you're way under your cost basis and you just feel terrible. But there's the times of volatility and big price declines are a lot of opportunity, and that'll bring me to my closing point, Restoration Hardware. I wrote about it privately for our group this week. I'm going to do an update, and I wrote about it publicly too. Stamping it too cheap to ignore. So take a look at that. And I know a lot of us, especially if you bought recently, you're under your cost basis. But remember, the CEO bought shares above 200. The company bought shares above 330. At the highs in 2021, it was above $700 a share. So, that's what happens sometimes in these steep sell-offs. You get declines, the magnitude surprises you, but that doesn't mean that there's not opportunity there. And that was the case, for me in 2008 with General Growth Properties. Wasn't easy, that one in particular, and I'll elaborate more on that at a different time. But we've all experienced it, even in 2019, 2020. So just embrace the volatility now. Know that the economy is not as weak as feared, and try to get a rest and break this weekend. Happy Good Friday to everyone. Blessed to be alive. Blessed to be in this group. Looking forward to Easter weekend, seeing family. Some coming in from out of town. Hope you guys get to get a break and get relaxed, and have a nice weekend. Take care. Bye.